Nice. Post that shit. Nice. Okay, good. I saw. Yes, I do have this article up. Okay. Got that written down. Was watching a video with someone, waited a whole entire day to tell someone not to put the 10 Commandments into school, and they did it anyway. Average right-wing behavior? I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, to be honest, with the absolute state that education is in, the displaying of the 10 Commandments is kind of like, it seems like a pithy virtue or vice signal by comparison, right? Lady that was proposing the bills, like, I'm totally not trying to indoctrinate your children. Me, when I'm trying to indoctrinate children, I'm not trying to indoctrinate your children. Yeah. And I mean, that stuff is bad. It's just, that on its own, like, feels like small peanuts compared to, like, destroying the entire education system. And then, I mean, obviously it is part and parcel to retooling the education system to be an indoctrination and propaganda machine for the far right, but yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, well, it is what it is, right? Which is a, one of the classics. You know, I don't know if you know this, but Republicans have actually been advocating for that for well over a century. Or not Republicans necessarily by name, but conservatives have been advocating for specifically the 10 Commandments and biblical education to be a public standard for 100 years or more. In fact, this was discourse all the way back to the passage of the Public Education Act, or I think maybe it was even just the Education Act of 1834 that established the K-12 public school system. As far back as the actual year they passed that bill into law, there's been discourse about, like, conservatives and religious crazies wanting to, you know, teach the 10 Commandments in the public schools. And, you know, it's like, it's almost like a kind of policy discourse from a different era, because it's, like, steeped in some, well, I would say less insane objectives and rhetoric, but it's a similar level of insane. It just kind of comes from a different time and place, you know? I don't want the stream turned into, oh no, Trump did this now, every time. Well, I mean, Trump administration is very active, so I mean, there's going to be a little bit of that, for sure. But no, the first thing I wanted to talk about was not his new nickname or Geert Wilders or whatever else is happening. I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit more serious and a little bit more grim, having to do with, you know, the initial part of the stream title. Okay. It's, concentrate a little bit, get deeper into lap 3, and then I can really start talking about this. Alright. So, I believe it was 2 days ago, if I'm remembering the date of the publication that I saw correctly, May 28th, Israel and America collaborated, you know, shocker, to commit a war crime. Double shocker. Like, damn, crazy. Nobody can believe this. But it's interestingly enough, it is a war crime that I have not, that I and other news publications have not yet seen these respective governments sort of resort to. And that war crime is a little something called perfidy. Now, what is perfidy? Perfidy, if you look at the Wikipedia article, it refers to an act of deception. Let's see, if I read the intro paragraph here. In the context of war, perfidy is a form of deceptive tactic where one side pretends to act in good faith, such as signaling a truce, for example, raising a white flag, but does so with the deliberate intention of breaking that promise. The goal is to trick the enemy into lowering their guard, such as stepping out of cover to accept a supposed surrender, only to exploit their vulnerability. My cat wants to... Quicker. No, you can't go in there, Squeaker. That's a closet. No. Come on. Sounds very familiar. Yes, in fact, the most well-known example of this war crime in history would be the mythical war between... well, you know, mythical in some ways, not so much in others. There's general consensus that this war did happen in some form between Troy and Ithaca, where the Trojan, or not, was it Troy and Ithaca? Whatever. The Trojan horse is the most well-known example of a war crime such as this, where the Trojan horse was presented as a gift to the city of Troy, I believe, and you know, but there were soldiers hiding in the horse. So what appeared to be a gesture of peace was a deceptive act of war. That is against the rules of war, and it can be a broad-ranging sort of crime in what it implicates, with the kind of behavior that it implicates. And of course, the Wikipedia article mentions specifically the impersonation of certain aid organizations from the United Nations, the use of certain recognized symbols where they do not apply and are, you know, again, deceptive in their application. In the case of Israel and America, it takes the form not of the impersonation of a specific org, but the impersonation of a certain type of org, if that makes sense. There's an Al Jazeera article that I intend to refer to for this matter. But basically, the long and the short of it is that American and Israeli military personnel and mercenaries, as well as state offices, impersonated and pretended to be a humanitarian aid group with the intention of luring Palestinians out into a concentrated sort of setting where they were in long lines, so that they could do a you know, a PR stunt, and also potentially well, what ended up happening is they killed a bunch of them. There were several Palestinians that died as a result of the military opening fire on a hungry crowd that was forced into very cramped lines for the sake of a kind of a sham operation for supposed humanitarian aid that would, like, clearly did not have any thought put into it from a logistical perspective, and was mostly meant for the cameras, you know. In fact, the whole situation actually evoked images very, very reminiscent, almost down to a T, of the Holocaust in the 40s and the Nakba in 1948, particularly, where you had many photos of starving civilians on one side of a barbed wire fence and an armed, like heavily armed soldier patrolling the other side. Let's go to this article. There we go. Yeah, from Al Jazeera. Heinous crime. Israel kills 10 desperate aid seekers in Gaza in 48 hours. Updated death toll comes amid condemnation of US-backed aid delivery scheme and Israeli bombing across the enclave. Oh, yes, that's right. It wasn't just necessarily to kill Palestinian civilians. It was also this aid distribution site was intentionally set up, I think, at the very southern end of the Gaza Strip, with the intention of moving a lot of Palestinians basically away from their homes to lure them down south so that Israel could march in and occupy up north. Basically, this was a mass displacement operation disguised as a humanitarian aid mission, and as a bonus, they got to use it as a PR stunt. Such is the nature of this particular war crime. Here, at least 10 Palestinians... Oh, I was right. It was May 28th. Okay. At least 10 Palestinians desperately seeking aid from a contentious and heavily criticized United States-backed organization have been killed by Israeli forces in Gaza over the last 48 hours, according to the besieged enclave's government media office. And that's just with the extremely limited and dwindling resources that they have to count, basically count the bodies in instances like this. The updated toll on Wednesday comes a day after a harrowing video showed thousands of starving Palestinians rushing to get aid, with many of them herded, into cage-like lines from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution point in Rafah in southern Gaza. And this org that they refer to, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is effectively a kind of well, not even effectively, it is a kind of stooge organization that is funded by the United States and Israeli governments. In a statement, the government media office said Israeli forces, opened direct fire, on hungry Palestinian civilians who had gathered to receive aid at the distribution site, wounding at least 62 people. I'm surprised that more people haven't died, although again, it's possible that could be a function of them just not being able to count the bodies. It was not immediately clear exactly how many incidents of gunfire occurred or on which days the 10 Palestinians were fatally shot, but there were deaths on both days. So, okay, so this distribution scheme occurred over the course of 2 days. These locations were transformed into death traps under the occupation's gunfire, the media office said, decrying the killings as a heinous crime. For its part, the GHF said it had opened a second of a planned 4 aid distribution sites in Gaza on Wednesday. The centers are part of an aid delivery scheme that has been roundly condemned by UN officials and the humanitarian community, who have repeatedly said that life-saving aid could be adequately and safely scaled up in Gaza if Israel would allow access to aid and let those organizations that have decades of experience handle the flow. They created this foundation specifically to try to quiet down the UN and do PR for themselves so that they didn't have to let real humanitarian orgs give aid to Gaza, because those humanitarian orgs would have probably something to say about the conditions of Gaza, and that would allow eyeballs in and it would allow information out. And Israel doesn't want that because their project is genocidal in nature. So they had to create their own stooge organization. Speaking earlier in the day, the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, decried the US-backed delivery model as a, quote, distraction from atrocities, unquote, and called on Israel to allow the UN-backed humanitarian system to do its life-saving work now. The message was echoed by several members of the UN Security Council. Holy shit! Do you have any idea how fucking insane and inhumane you have to be for the UN Security Council to be telling you that, like, you need to consider the humanitarian needs of people and, like, let aid into this, like, war zone? Jesus. So yeah, they're so bad the UN Security Council is even like, dog, you gotta like give them food. This was during a meeting in New York discussing the conflict with Algeria, France, and the UK among those appealing for Israel to allow unfettered aid deliveries. Yeah, this goes kind of under the radar because we haven't been hearing that much about this. But keep in mind that Israel has a total blockade on all supplies and humanitarian assistance coming into Gaza that isn't through like whatever meager stunt they decide to set up with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Which is why, like, even a lot of previously bad actors are having to change their tune on whether or not this is a genocide, because it's so clear that, like, without any regular deliveries of food for months, there has to be, like, there is a death toll that we're not seeing, and it's impossible that this isn't intentional. Like, Israel knows perfectly well the consequences of not allowing food into a, very food insecure zone that depends on food imports. Like I said earlier, that's the whole point. And so just to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this is this is a pretty textbook example of perfidy, because they are posing as basically the United States and Israel are posing as humanitarian aid givers, while they are explicitly doing so to lure Palestinians away from their homes, to displace them and occupy more of the Gaza Strip, and simultaneously to keep real humanitarian orgs that have been vetted by the UN, that have decades of experience and real credentials out of the Gaza Strip, or to justify keeping them from entering, as they have been. Sounds familiar from history? Yeah, I think Germany also did this. Nazi Germany, I think, also did this. So there was like some sham charities. Here, hold on. Nazi Germany sham charities? Yeah, look. Republicans wonder why we keep mentioning them. Yeah, I wonder fucking why. I can't fucking pronounce that. Here we go. The Winter Relief of the German People, commonly known by its abbreviated form WHW, was an annual donation drive by the Nazi Party, or the National Socialist People's Welfare. Established in 1933, the WHW was this is nominally a charity, major source of funding for the activities of the Nazi Welfare Office, and the second largest mass organization in Nazi Germany. Donations were theoretically voluntary, but de facto required of German citizens with high levels of social pressure to contribute. WHW replaced tax-funded welfare programs. Classic. Replacing everything with a fucking worse version of itself. Freeing up money for rearmament. So basically, they outsourced their welfare spending to squeezing the poor, so they could spend more money on rearmament, which was against international law at the time. It also had a propaganda role, encouraging solidarity of the... I don't fucking know what that word is. Volksminded something or other. Persistent rumors that the WHW was a sham, with the proceeds spent on apartments, were at least partially confirmed by Martin Bormann, who responded to questions of from the Nazi Party. What the f... Hit a table. Damn. Responded to questions from the Nazi Party treasurer by stating the money raised by WHW was controlled and allocated by Adolf Hitler alone. So even this is like a slightly different kind of sham charity than the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, but yet it's another high-profile example, to the extent that you could list things that sort of masquerade as humanitarian ventures, but are really spent on some other, like, extremely corrupt and nefarious purposes, there are three countries, that constitute major examples in history, being America, Israel, and Nazi Germany, unsurprisingly. In fact, I feel like if we're going for parallels between Nazi Germany and Zionist ideology in Israel, you should go watch Hassan's video where there's like this guessing game where it's like, okay, we're going to give you a quote and we're going to make some parts of it like generic so that it doesn't, like, you don't have the specific words to give away whether this quote comes from Nazi Germany or from Zionist Israel, right? And you have to guess whether this is some like an Israeli Zionist that said this or a like Nazi official from Germany. And he like reliably got it wrong until he started flipping a coin. And watching along, you can kind of tell why. They sound exactly the fucking same, and like, again, all that like goes to illustrate the point that the way that Israel is treating Palestinians in Gaza now, and the West Bank as well, people aren't watching the West Bank as intensely as Gaza, it seems, but this is still going on there too, is the exact same sort of way that the German government and Germans in the 30s and 40s were treating the Jews. I don't know why, but my brain confuses Destiny and Hassan for some reason. You are cooked, I think. Like, maybe just a little bit. Is this gonna last me long enough? It should. Yeah. I know it's like subjects like this, talking about the perfidy that was committed by Israel and America jointly. To be honest, I don't watch either of them. That's fair. There's not much that we can do about it apart from like raising a stink in protests, both like when you're out and about and on social media and stuff. That was a good shot. Like, there's not much we can do to properly avert the fate of the Palestinian people, it seems, right? Like, we can try to hold media attention all we want, but, the news media and the government both know which side their bread is buttered on, and they are not acting in good faith here. And I feel like at this point, we still have an important role to play, but it's largely going to be making sure that everybody remembers the behavior of the American media and the Israeli state and Israeli media and whatever, the same way that we remember the behavior of Nazi Germany with respect to the Jewish people in Europe. Finally caught a stream. Nice. Relatively grim moment, but yeah. Because and another grim thing to think about is somebody. Well, several somebodies have been mentioning that there's a sentiment that's going to become more prevalent. One day, everybody will have always been against this, in the same way that we refer back to the Holocaust now, or the Vietnam War, the atrocities committed by America in Vietnam, or any other kind of instances, or the Iraq War as well. In the cases of Vietnam and Iraq, much less severe than completely sanctioning a genocide. But I think as grim as that even sounds, though, one day everyone will have always been against this, and it's our job to never let them fucking forget that no, you weren't actually against this. I think it's our job to make sure that point eventually happens, when it's so toxic to be pro-Israel that everybody has to at least pretend that they were always against this genocidal project. You know? Because that's what it's been throughout history. Yeah. Jesus. I don't know if I want that to become a segment, because I'm going to be out of town next week. I don't know if I'll have the time to edit this down. But if it is a segment, you know, cut it there. And this is what I meant, by the way, by total whiplash, because that was, like, really grim, and then the next couple things are, like, kind of pathetic and funny. Like, the relevant, topics of discussion, I guess, for today. Yeah. Such as, like, the consequence of the 24-hour media cycle, right? Like, you fucking... Sure, like, things have always been happening in a very tonally dissonant context from one another, right? But, like, I feel like with the pace of news broadcasts now, there's almost a unique degree to which you can be met first with something that's so pathetic that it's actually really funny, and then with something that's so grim that you're just like, man, it's actually Jover. Made something cool as fucking Geometry Dash? That's cool. Human lifespans are so short that nothing ever happens became of that. Sent in the general chat on the Discord. Ah, I got you. How am I in 4th? Oh, that guy's way up there. Golden Mushroom. I know it's possible the shock happens pretty soon. But I'm still gonna probably start using this. Yep. It's the same spot as last lap. Damn. Well, I got some usage out of that golden. At the very least. To be fair, humans live a long-ass time compared to most animals. That is true. And most of it be, yeah, that's true. Google Gaga babies, or yeah, we spend a lot of time being really, really young or really, really old. Although, to be fair, old people in America are actually, like, pretty active and progressive politically. You know, like, the strongest warriors of the left and of the, like, left liberal bloc in America are, like, the grandmas and grandpas who don't really have much to do now that they're retired. So they go and volunteer with the local Democratic Party or something and do, like, food donation drives and stuff. And are, like, I've had phone calls with these people. When I did phone banking back in the 2024 season and in the 2023 season, 2022 season, you know, a lot of people who would, like, pick up the phone disproportionately would be older. And these people are holding up the fucking country on their shoulders. You know? Like, these people are, for the most part, older than 50, older than 60 for a lot of them. And there's, like, basically, you know that, it's like the country... is a train, is the subway train from Spider-Man that is on its way to crashing into the river because, you know, Dr. Octavius fucking ripped the brake out. Old people in America, like the progressive grandmas and grandpas, are Spider-Man, like, desperately shooting out the, like, the spider webs and, like, single-handedly holding onto the train, trying to slow it down so it stops before that collapse point happens, right? That, at least for the like old school, like, lefties and liberals who are like that age, because a lot of older folks who are liberals are not neoliberals. They're just regular liberals, which means they'll still believe in the capacity of the state to render public services via the public, and you know, believe in labor rights and stuff like that. You know, a lot of people who are old enough to have basically come of age politically in that era will have their politics kind of molded by the standards of that era, which means it's like kind of before all the neoliberal rot happened. I mean, I could just be, like, yapping. The point is, I love old people. They are the country's strongest warriors in both directions. Yes, this is a part of why rich people want you to work until you die. If you are constantly working and you have no chance to have, like, you have no chance to have, like, a life outside of work, or if everything's so alienating that you never get to learn what life looks like at all, then, like, there's no chance of any sort of politically active instincts developing. You know? It's to keep you distracted and miserable. I swear old people will either be the most insufferable people ever, the funniest people ever, or the most wholesome people you've ever seen. Yeah! My granddad's kind of like that. He's one of the funniest fucking people I've ever met in my life. He's also surprisingly active. Like, I think he plays tennis every week. I love old people. That's true. Old people going on the internet is both a blessing and a curse. That is true. Big facts. All fun and games till we take that out of context. I love old people. That's true. Dude, it's kind of boring. Like, people don't even bother to take stuff out of context anymore. They'll just post it in context and then lie about it. You know? You have them doing the funniest shit ever on Facebook, then there's, like, all the bad shit the internet has. Yeah, there's, like, you either get they're eating the dogs kind of boomers, like, extremely racist, or then they'll talk about, like, or they'll be, like, the most libbed up anti-Trumpers that, like, do volunteer work non-stop in their off time, which is, like, most of the time. Or they'll post something unintentionally extremely funny, and they're like, haha, I had a text conversation with my grandson, here's what it was. And they'll just be like, you know. Reason why all people are like that is the fascism or communism reality. Yeah, it's it's almost like the in the best way possible, old people are starting to enter the socialism or barbarism dynamic. You know, the fold there. You know, even though I'm sure a lot of them probably don't approve of socialism if you use the word socialism, right? Grandpa sent me a text that said, "I want to die." I was like, "You're like, huh?" And then he said that the local Taco Bell shut down. Fuck it, that's so real. Your granddad is so real for that. Can you play Cult of the Lamb in your own time? Trust me, it's a fun game. Don't tell me what to do. But also, I did look into Cult of the Lamb. I've played a fair few roguelikes. I don't think I would enjoy that one all that much. I'm just being totally honest. No shade to the game. I'm sure it's fine, but, you know. Like roguelikes, but tycoon games stress me the fuck out. I haven't actually played that many tycoon games. I remember them being like a really big fixture in like the Adobe Flash era of gaming. And I know I played a few of them, but I don't really remember, like, the one that people always talk about is like a Roller Coaster Tycoon, and I never played that. That was a really good fake item, but I'm even better, so I didn't hit it. Management simulators are my nightmare. Yeah. Oh, here's actually one that I did play a little while ago that I have is a PC building simulator. It was like you know, that and the sequel, PC Building Simulator 2. It was a fun way to indulge in a little bit of like PC tinkering without me having to like spend money on PC tinkering. You know, it was combined like, I don't know, 50 or 60 bucks for the games combined. And then like that was it. Needy Streamer Overload is both amazing and stressful. Is that a game? There's a game where you get to pretend to be a streamer. That's incredibly funny. So many mobile games are trying to make you like a business, have the business owner mindset. Yeah, I never really took to those that much. Not the mobile versions, at least. Isn't a streaming game made by PewDiePie? I don't know. I mean, this is literally the first time I've heard about it. Oh! It's basically managing your bipolar girlfriend with abandonment issues, and it's fucking terrifying, and I love it. Every single ending is bad. That game sounds quirked up. I'm not sure I would enjoy it, so I will wait for somebody on YouTube to make a series about it who I've like subscribed to the channel or something like that, or any YouTubers that I'm familiar with. Manly Badass Hero did? Oh shit! I gotta hit up the channel then. Because, you know, I'm a big fan of Mr. Manly Badass Hero. He instantly won, like, a ton of points for me. Like, it was nice to have to see there be, like, a YouTube channel that streamed horror, or streamed, that did, like, horror game playthroughs that wasn't Markiplier. But he won way more, like, cool points for me the moment I saw a game of his that he was playing where he was like, yeah, I'm like a huge fashionista and I love fashion, and I was like, yes, holy shit, he actually has a personality, you know, because sometimes like you find certain gaming YouTube channels as such a crapshoot. He's a He does a lot of visual novel and horror game sort of playthroughs. A lot of indie stuff. He does very, very in-depth playthroughs and explorations of these games. As far as I know, most of the games that he has played, at least for the past couple years, he tries to actually go through and get every single ending. And then he kind of like reviews them after the fact. Markiplier was good for horror games, especially just being goofy as shit. That's true. He is the goofiest man. And no matter what game he is playing, I love him for that. Remember the one video he did of the AI story bots just to take the piss? I do remember that one. I don't think I watched it, but it was like, he put in like 2 words, and then he was like, alright, you have 2 words, make a story. And it was just the same 2 words over and over and over again. Because that's how AI language models work. And so he just fucked around with it. One thing I particularly, one of my favorite Markiplier videos to come out of the past like year or two was the smash or pass all fucking 800 something Pokemon. And it was just, for the most part, it was just him like looking at each Pokemon, saying smash or pass, and then like having various expressions, and like Lixian doing the fucking goofy edits, And then like at the end he said like no, I will not explain myself. I will not be taking questions. Some games where I got stuff that was really difficult to get, and after I beat the game, I was like, good, this game was fun. I'm gonna do everything in my power to forget about this game. Yeah, so, sometimes there are games that are just like that, very forgettable, even though they're good games. Did a prompt of Ronald McDonald versus Shaggy, and he had to censor it because it got a little racist. What the fuck? What was the AI cooking? Nobody will ever know. Oh, you meant the game is fun, but you don't want to remember it. Why that blew up? Well, I mean, the whole Pokemon Smasher Pass was just like a fun internet trend. Vosh did a video on it as well. And, you know, let me tell you, the banter and the edits with chat were, they were pretty good. In fact, if you look at Vosh's video, I was actually in chat for that one. Wasn't that much of a presence, but, you know. Everybody fucking, like, hammed it up every time there was, like, a horse Pokemon. It was great. Favorite ever on YouTube is Jacksepticeye's Undertale playthrough. Favorite playthrough. I wasn't as much of a Jacksepticeye kind of watcher. Barely look at chat on stream. They move too fast for me to read them. I don't frequently look at other people's chats, but sometimes I will chat if I have like a question or want to crack a joke or something like that. And then obviously I'm paying attention to whichever chat message streamer decides to, you know, read out loud. You know. I think it's just like, it's kind of nice to have chat up on the screen from the perspective of any streamer, from, you know, myself or whoever else. Because it's like, it's an easy point of reference for when people hear you reading a chat, hear the streamer reading a chat message. They can see, even if they can't see the exact details of the chat message, they can see, oh, somebody typed in chat. I will check general chat, in fact. Lava level? Geometry Dash lava? Oh my god, it's Mario Maker, but for Geometry Dash. That's sick. And also, like, kind of cursed, because I know people are going to make Kaizo levels in a game that was already pretty difficult. That's official? Damn. That's a smart business decision, if nothing else. Had a level maker for a long time. I didn't know that. People have made the entirety of FNAF 1 in Geometry Dash? How the fuck does that work? I feel like they're two fundamentally different kind of video games. I don't know how you make FNAF into a platformer. But alright, go off. Usually don't like big streamers for that exact reason besides Schlatt. Sometimes there can be an upside to it. Because, like, you don't see as much of what people are typing, but you do see the emotes, you know? I'll start using this. Try to, yeah. I figured that would probably run out at about that time. Alright. After this race, I can probably talk about... I still haven't moved on to the next thing that was, like, news relevant that I wanted to talk about. I like... It was just... I guess maybe I needed a break. We needed some, like, cool-off time after talking about fucking heinous war crimes. You know, which I guess is to be expected. That's only necessary, I guess. Don't hit me! Okay. Remember when Vosh said talk to people in chat. It's like, read so fast, they probably can't read mine. Yeah, it's kind of hard to engage with chat just because it's just like this big monolith that scrolls by so fast. You know? Small streamers are actually kind of nice for that reason. Or like medium-sized streamers. Like Cody Schwab. Guy who I raid because he's really cool and smart and plays Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo GameCube. You know? People made 3D games. People made Zelda 1 clones with an NES-style password system. Damn, that's actually really impressive. Ow. He hit me with banana. Ow. How did I maintain speed from that? What? That's crazy. Get me to the finish line. Okay. One of the hardest memory levels in the entire game is 3 minutes of precise, completely unsight-readable memory gameplay that has over 200,000 objects. Jesus Christ. Average geometry dash level creator. Said level ends with a completely random cup shuffle game that you have to keep track of a key while playing. God damn. That's 2.2 update 7 years after 2.1 release. Well, hey, better late than never, right? This person's a fanboy? That's true. Yeah, whoever created that level is a professional geometry dash appreciator. Been playing Geometry Dash since 2016. Cool. Very nice. It was a group of like 12 people? Oh, wow, that's interesting. That's cool. Let's actually... Now that I've got a little bit of space before this race starts, let's open up... There we go, Politico. Okay. You guys remember how I said... Sent in Discord? Gotcha. That, like... Just offhanded when I was talking about the tariffs, that like, I did make a video about how the tariffs are like a massive grift, but I mentioned that like it's possible the Trump administration just every month is like, we're announcing new tariffs, just kidding, except actually we meant it, just kidding, haha, unless, and like every month they like announce / impose new tariffs and then push them back, and so that like there's this weird disinformation campaign so nobody knows what's going on economically with the rest of the world and America's relationships with other countries. Apparently, that might or might not remain to be the case. We'll see. From Politico, White House insists court ruling won't derail Trump's tariff agenda. Apparently, there was a federal judge that struck down the unilateral tariffs from President Trump, which surprised me even because I thought that tariffs were something that administrations kind of did have the unilateral authority to do, but I guess not, and I guess the fucking legal system's just, you know, terminally, it's so asleep at the wheel that people don't even know what the law is anymore, you know? You know, characteristic of decaying legal system in a dying country, right? And I have a star in first. Oh, that POW was almost really well timed. They're trying to make it so the stock market is unpredictable. That's why they're acting that way. Yeah, it's like it's an extension of just having a big old pump and dump scheme, right? Like what they want to do is just market manipulation so they can buy the dip, like all the fucking, you know, tech bros say or whatever, you know? But I guess a judge has said that, like, yeah, you can't do that. What makes me think that, like, the administration might be correct in saying, like, this won't deter us, is that, remember, there's that bill in the Senate still where, like, that would effectively put an end to federal injunctions. And it's not like the Trump administration has really been playing ball with the courts anyways, right? Like, they're already kind of disobeying court orders left and right. It wouldn't surprise me that much if they just disobeyed this one. Trump administration officials are making clear that they won't back down on their global tariff policies without a fight, even after a federal court struck down its emergency tariffs on dozens of countries in a ruling Wednesday night. Kevin Hassett, the head of Trump's National Economic Council, brushed off the ruling on Fox Business Thursday morning, calling the decision a mere hiccup in Trump's plan caused by activist judges. Cool. In a month or two, you're going to look ahead and see what countries have opened their markets to American products. They've lowered their non-tariff barriers. They've lowered their tariffs, and all countries that have done that are being treated very respectfully and well by the U.S., Hassett said, adding that countries that don't abide by Trump's plan should expect some form of reciprocal tariffs. I fully expect them to never mention that this guy's full of shit and that, like, he's lying through his teeth, because this is Politico. They're completely captured by the far right, as is basically every other news outlet, with very rare exception. Yeah. The way they talk about terrorists is truly some, like, incoherent fantasyland shit, and it's clear that they don't really believe what they're saying. But, you know, the news outlets just kind of roll with it anyways. Ow. Dang. Dead-ass villain mastermind wording? Yeah. Well, I guess I have my work cut out for me this race. Yeah. Alright, give me this box. Thank you. Golden mushroom. I think I know where I want to use this. I'm not 100% sure. Yes, I am. Never mind. I think this runs out before the next set of items comes up. Yeah. Well. Well, I caught up, just about, so that's all right. Shoutouts to Mockbike being able to take turns super tight. Yeah, I like. I don't know. It's one of those instances. I genuinely don't know whether this court ruling is going to stop the administration from implementing these tariffs or not, right? Because they're doing so under, it seems like, the auspice of emergency powers. And emergency powers are completely legal, but, like, give really, really broad authority. It's probably, like, it's part of the reason that, like, they're very problematic and frequently associated with authoritarian consolidations of power, right? Because it's a very easy, completely legal method of doing so. I don't know. I don't doubt in the slightest that the ruling from this federal court is like valid and like completely legally above board and stuff, right? In fact, you know, it'd be nice if they didn't have the power or authority to destroy the entire economy just from the administrative branch. You know, that'd be pretty good. But, like, I don't know how much realistically this is going to actually deter the administration from doing that. Trump relied on the 1977 International Economic Emergency Powers Act to impose his sweeping reciprocal tariffs on the grounds that the large and persistent trade deficit represented a national emergency. See, that's what I mean. You can just say this is a national emergency, and because the bounds of emergency powers are so fucking broad, that allows you to basically do anything. And it's perfectly in line with fascist ideology and a fascist playbook, because they need a constant state of emergency and hysteria to be able or allowed to do anything that they want to do, you know? That's how That's how they, like, do legalistic takeovers, and it's also how they sort of gin up support from their base. Is if you can generate a media buzz that keeps people irrational and afraid, they will be very, very willing to go along with whatever you've got in mind. Because, you know, they can just pitch it to you irrationally and in a way that makes no sense, and they'll just be like, I'm afraid, so I'll just, like, trust you or something, I guess. You know? Oh, that's a shortcut. I didn't realize that. Or not. It looks like he fell off. This track is very front-running oriented. The problem is one blue shell or one shock or a combination of the two, and I'm pretty much done. Or that could happen too. What is happening with that guy up there? It looks like he's lagging pretty bad. Okay. I was gonna say, I hope that doesn't hit the guy behind me. The Court of International Trade ruled that Trump had overstepped his authority in imposing the tariffs. But Hassett rejected that argument. Who the fuck is Hassett? He's an administration official. Motherfucker, you're the one being ruled against. See, this framing is so equivocatory, right? It's like, oh, well, you know, the judge issued a fucking ruling. Like, that shit is law. And then but the administration said otherwise. It's like, fucking, there is no they said otherwise. Part of the reason they're even able to get away with half the shit that they do is because the media does an insane amount of, like, both sane washing and equivocation for what they're allowed to do and what is, like, considered reasonable politically. Unironically, Politico is part of the problem here. The idea that the fentanyl crisis in America... Okay, something fentanyl, I don't fucking care. And they're oh, okay. And they said, like, yeah, we intend to appeal. See, like, this is the thing, right? There is a legal channel by which you can challenge a ruling. It's called the appeals process. But until then, that ruling goes into effect, motherfucker. Or at least it used to be that way. But now the government can just kind of do what it wants, and the news media will be like, oh, well, you know, the administration said that we're allowed to do this. The judges say otherwise, but, you know, who can say? And that's how you get this shit. It seems like there's not much else insofar as, like, useful information from this article, so I'm just gonna kind of leave it at that. I don't want to subject myself to more centrist swill. I mean, like, for shit's sake, remember, the last time I think I covered a Politico article at length, or like, read through one at length, was when they were fucking glazing Keir Starmer's centrist do-nothing vision for the Labour Party as the reason they won, and lambasting the Corbynites and the like, leftists in Britain for being politically ineffective when Corbyn got more votes than Keir Starmer did and was, like, vastly more popular. Even triple mushrooms is really good. Yeah, as much as it's kind of a thought-terminating cliche, the you know, media saying that people are very much like sheep in their inability to deviate from the herd and that they can kind of be led around by the nose by a sheepdog. It's kind of true, you know? And in a certain way, it's like you could be really cynical about it and use the exact phrasing of, like, wow, people are all sheep. But really, I think it just takes a material recognition of the circumstances that people exist in, which is media exists, propaganda exists, people want a narrative, and the big picture is really big, so a lot of people struggle to see it. So effectively, they need the narrative to be built for them, and right now, the only narrative building that's happening is the fascist narrative building, both by the fascists themselves, who are being very aggressive in their advertising and social media campaigns, and the centrist news outlets that are obsessed with, like, playing devil's advocate for them because they think they're being, like, edgy mavericks or whatever, and also because, like, their bosses said so. I mean, for shit's sake, you've got people at like, oh, I feel so bad for that guy. You got like the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, telling The View to like tone it back on the anti-Trump politics, right? Meanwhile, the most you really get from anything resembling the left, because there's so few institutional inroads for the left in America, and because the like all institutions are either fascist or liberal, you just get like normie anti-Trump liberalism, which is really ineffective and like kind of dickless. And especially with the Democratic Party actively suppressing attempts to address the divide in the ability to like wield media as a tool for messaging, right? I don't know. I'm kind of waffling with this, but like, Jesus, man. Even when a judge smacks down like strikes down the tariffs by a legal order, there's been enough like concession that I still actually don't know whether or not the tariffs are going to go into effect in early July. Originally, they were slated to go into effect in early June, this latest round of tariffs, but then that got pushed back. And I didn't even think it was worth mentioning because that's like the standard operating procedure at this point for this administration. I predicted this would happen kind of haphazardly. It's almost like this ruling doesn't change any of the information landscape because the news media is behaving as though it doesn't, you know? Like, the attitude being struck by Politico and other news outlets should be, you know what, the court, you know, like, the court struck it down, that's it, no more tariffs. And that should basically be that, and there should be kind of, like, a total media consensus and effort to kill the political momentum of these tariffs because, like, a judge straightforwardly said, yeah, that's illegal, you can't do it. But what's legal and illegal doesn't matter. All that matters is what, you know, the fucking top 1% of 1% wants, I guess. The owning class. So the media behaves as this isn't a cut and dry issue. You know? And of course, it warrants recognizing that, like, yeah, the administration might very well just try to ignore the judge, but you have to frame it as like, oh yeah, they might just decide to fucking break the law and ignore the judge in contradiction to, like, all constitutional precedent and law that's ever been established. And, you know, we're in the midst of a constitutional crisis. But if you've noticed, every single news media outlet has dropped the constitutional crisis language because they all fell in line. You know? Those are some good banana throws. And last turn. I think I should get first here. Yeah. I did it. I don't know, man. The pretend anti-Trumpism. Because they're not principally opposed to fascism either. It's like news has just become so completely vacuous. It almost has no value to, like... It almost brings no value to read news articles anymore. You know? Unless it's from Newsweek, apparently. Damn. But there is some other, like, on the subject of Trump and the media's dealings with Trump. I did see recently that I think it was ABC in a press conference at the White House, ABC brought up that people are starting to call Trump taco. Trump always chickens out. I like it because it's pithy. I've long since kind of stopped caring whether something is cringe or not. If it catches on, it catches on, and if it's anti-fascist or anti-Trump, then like fuck it, sure. You know, like back when people were saying Trump take egg or whatever, like that didn't make any fucking sense, but I didn't care because it's like, yeah, it accurately communicates or it like adequately communicates in short form, like, yeah, Trump makes everything worse, and the administration is making everybody's life worse. You know? Same thing with Taco. Apparently, a news reporter brought up that this nickname exists, and Trump, like, legitimately got defensive. Not mad, per se. Like, not his usual brand of your fake news media, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's disgraceful, honestly. Frankly, it's pretty disgraceful when you know... so I don't really care about that or whatever. Usually he'll kind of keep it to that. But this time he actually got defensive and started saying basically like, why are you guys so mean to me? Like he said, like, it's just nasty that people say these kind of things. It's nasty. It's not right. You shouldn't do that. And like seemed to be actually upset and hurt that he had been like personally insulted, that's what you gotta do. Like every liberal news media outlet doesn't fucking understand this, but you just gotta call Trump a funny ass name, you know, call him a big whiny baby bitch, and he'll cry his eyes out for fucking forever. Honestly, you just do that for every Republican. They don't know how to respond. You call Republicans weird, like at a large enough level, they shit themselves. You say that like people leave Trump's rallies early and he can't draw a crowd anymore. He spends the next 4 months talking about it, you know? But liberals actually don't understand that kind of real politic. Because they're too civility brained. Which is why I do kind of cringe whenever I hear that people are like, yeah, why can't we go back to being nice to each other? Fuck being nice to each other. There's an entire political faction that composes at least 30% of the country whose political identity revolves around making everyone's life worse and believing that I shouldn't exist. You know? Yeah, in the middle of the electoral cycle, the Democratic Party said to their own candidates on the campaign trail, stop saying, like, things that make Trump upset. Stop, like, being mean to him. Like, this party is so fucking unserious that, like, the only way that they can have a presence in politics is by being so completely ineffectual and non-present that it makes me mad to be reminded that they still exist. You know? Because they just take up space. Yeah, and if, you know, they can't move left because all their consultants would hate that. It means they would have to, like... Basically, the Democrats are there to run a grift where they funnel money into their consultant friends who tell them, like, you should have more racial sensitivity trainings on the job and not address any fundamental issues ever. And also, like, you know, have minor fiddly tax credits of $500 per 10 years or something. You know, and anything beyond that tramples on the interests of those consultants and the wealthy donors who fund the party so that the party can fund the consultants, who then go back to funding the party, because a lot of times the consultants are themselves the rich people. Pride Month is coming up? Oh, yeah. That's true. I you know, haven't been thinking that much about that, but Pride Month is going to be fun this year, I think. I'm going to be on vacation for a decent part of it, so that'll be nice. And I'm sure there will be kink at Pride discourse again. I am joining the war on kink at Pride on the side of kink at Pride. I want to see 1 million leather daddies in BDSM gear at the Pride March. And I want to see the government be like, no, you're not allowed to do that, and go, like, try to beat up gay people for being gay in public. And I want the people to revolt over that, or some shit. I don't know. Basically, gay people need to be more aggressively gay. And they're, because I think that's one of the ways that you can sort of assert a cultural sort of progressive power that is really paralyzing for fascist governments. You know, that's part of the reason that this fascist project is being undertaken, is because they want to revert this country to an earlier stage of like being more conservative, right? And they have to actually take such a comprehensive, multifaceted assault on like media institutions and propaganda and whatever, because otherwise the cultural progressivism in this country is literally too strong for that. Oof. Barely avoided that red shell. I'm happy to get second here, frankly. Okay. You know, like the, I'm joining the war on autism, on the side of the autism. That's me with Kink at Pride right now. Like, I'm looking back on it, it's pretty cringe that there was, like, Kink at Pride discourse, like, okay. But right now, I think it's one of those kinds of moods where it's like, you know what, fuck it. Queer people have been living on the margins since forever, and there's actually a very clear and present threat to queer rights, and you don't defend queer rights by compromising, okay, maybe we don't have Kink at Pride or whatever. Might die at the end of the year, too? What do you mean by that? Let me get this thing ready. Yeah. Translate to English, please. Thank you. Some of them are already getting sent to El Salvador. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there were some people that got rounded up and potentially, like, sent to CCOT or something like that. But honestly, it seems like the Trump administration has been trying to find basically another place to put immigrants, because ever since Senator Van Hollen went down to CCOT, it's been a little bit too hot for the Trump administration to touch. You know, like, not to say the Democrats have done anything meaningful, but even that much has made it so, like, I don't know if we want to, like, keep sending people to Gulag in a manner that is very publicly visible, right? That's kind of why a little while ago we heard about ICE agents trying to coerce detainees, and by detainees I mean random fucking people that they just decided to black bag, to sign a piece of paper that said, yeah, we're sending you to Libya. You know? Like, legitimately, again, this comes back to the fucking problem with Democrats. They don't do shit. But, like, when they actually do something, it has an effect. You know, just one senator going down to CCOT had the effect of making it, like, basically slowing down the machine of sending people to CCOT, right? It still happens. But we need politicians that are willing to do basically PR stunts like that, to be like, wow, look how fucking evil the administration is. They're sending all our constituents and whatever to this foreign prison to rot forever with no due process and shit like that. You know, and they need to be pumping social media content out 24/7 about that, because that works, you know? all that to say, yeah, it unfortunately it is possible that like, and in fact very likely that there are arrests and such that occur at Pride, and some of those protest goers or march goers could end up in El Salvador or worse. Oh, poor Rosalina. Okay. Okay. Second. Ah, oh, third. Dang. Funky's just a little bit faster. Now I want to actually talk about something that was recommended in the content suggestions channel on Discord. Here we go. RTL News. This is about the PVV. Shout outs to the Euro bros and especially the Dutch homies. This one was about apparently. Oh yeah, more anti-immigration stuff from the Netherlands, characteristic of the PVV. Dude, Geert Wilders, it's actually insane. The leader of the far right, like, bloc in the Netherlands looks like a fucking mega church pastor. Geert Wilders, if you look him up. Anyways, Wilders demands stricter asylum measures and threatens to end the cabinet, otherwise we're gone. Do it, pussy. End the cabinet. Do another government collapse. This would actually be incredible. Best possible timeline. Fascists keep winning in the Netherlands, but they can never do anything, so eventually they're doomed to just collapse the government in on itself, and then they have another election. Truly, we need that, like, the best timeline to be realized for more countries, where the fascist like party wins, tries to do some like virtue signaling and stuff, but is so incompetent that they just collapse the government, and they're like, fuck, okay, I guess we'll call for new elections, and then like they do that basically until they lose to the left. Dang. The PVV wants to close the borders for asylum seekers and demands that the cabinet, of which the party is a part, arranges this at most within a few weeks. So they're setting up a strict deadline. I think that the deadline here looks like it's so strict that it's like basically not possible for them to do anything by that date. Like, you can't, if your country has an established asylum process, you can't shut down that process in its entirety in a few weeks unless you're willing to break some very major laws in so doing. And while the law has lost all meaning in America, of course, in Europe it's actually a little bit of a different story, right? Even the far right parties of Europe, especially like the ones that talk so much about defending the welfare state, from what I've seen, have that institutional element to them that makes me think that they won't actually be able, even if they try, to go through with this, because there's still an amount of political pearl clutching to be had when a political party like flagrantly breaks a bunch of laws. You know, like the news media in Europe is much more critical. They've got their problems, but they're much more critical of their politicians than American news media is here, you know? And again, that's not a high bar at all, but it is a material factor that I think becomes relevant. Geert Geert Wilders said this during a press conference. Otherwise, we're gone, he threatened. Don't threaten me with a good time. I'll take you up on that, motherfucker. He also wants to close asylum centers, significantly increase border control, and temporarily stop family reunification. See, it seems like some of this is just too much. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm not wrong, but, like, it seems like this ultimatum is almost designed to go too far. And I feel like I hope that they go through with it, and that it is too much for them to go through with, because what he's threatening is, I'll collapse the government if we can't do this. So I hope they try and then, like, fail, if that makes sense. Because then that means there's another election, and it's like, oh, wow, what is this, the fucking 5th government collapse or something? Great job, far-right party. They're so used to liberals, do they think they can do whatever they want? I think they do think that. You know, like I've said on other occasions, the far right elsewhere really resembles the far right in the United States, which means they're not always extraordinarily effective at what they do. They're still very effective, don't get me wrong, but there are some frictions that they run up against when you have America as a cultural exporter of fascism, at the same time ruining its relationship with all these different countries and gaining a reputation for fascism, basically destroying the social democracy that Europeans are so well acquainted with and understand better than Americans do. Does that make sense? Basically, what I'm saying is that every far-right party in Europe bears the stain of being associated with America, and that stain, as well as being from a perception point of view, is also ideological in that they sort of act like they're in America. And they, oftentimes they aren't, and that's not to say what they do still, like, doesn't work sometimes still. It just to say that sometimes like, they can't get away with stuff. You know? And I'm hoping that that's what happens here, where they're like, grr, you better stop all these asylum claims, or we're gonna disband the cabinet and collapse the government. And then they're like, okay, go ahead, collapse the government. And they collapse the government. You know? Because the more elections happen, the more chances the left functionally has to, like, get back in the game. You know, we've seen that when elections have happened post, like, far-right resurgency and post, like, betrayal of the liberals and stuff like that, we've seen the left actually gain a considerable amount of ground. The Nouveau Front Populaire in France, Die Linke in Germany, you know, the Socialist Party that has actually been, I think, the governing party in Spain for a little while. Wilders believes this cabinet is falling short. The gloves are coming off today. That is why. And here's another thing, too. This just occurred to me again as I was reading this. It's Geert Wilders' own cabinet, right? He's the prime minister. So these are all cabinet ministers from his far-right party or other far-right parties. The far-right all fucking hates each other, and so they're, like, gonna be infighting like crazy. And in a government like this, that kind of has consequences. And I hope those consequences come to bear. That'd be pretty funny. Gloves are coming off today. That's why we're presenting an additional package of measures. He said this afternoon during an emergency press conference. And when it says, like, this afternoon, this was written on May 26th and amended May 27th. So it's a few days old. After I cover this article, I think I'll be done with stream, but yeah. The PVV has become the largest party with 37 seats. We promised our voters that we would have the strictest admission policy ever. Unfortunately, that has still not happened. We are no longer leading this country, but rather lagging behind. He points to countries such as Germany and Austria where similar plans have been announced. I wonder if it could be a bad sign, the far right looking to Germany for inspiration. I wonder. They cite the German and Austrian far right as their inspiration. Clueless. Wilders has presented a plan with 10 points. For example, the borders must be closed. I'm not really interested in the details of this plan because it's all misanthropic and evil anyway. The point is, they want to do bad things. They want brown people to die, right? Okay. now we get the reactions of the other. I'm gonna just skip kind of to the reactions of the other right-wing parties, because that's what I think interests me in this article. You have the VVD and the NSC. Interestingly, not the BBB. Like, the BBB isn't mentioned in this article. I don't know why that is. Maybe they're not as relevant as they used to be. I don't know. Let's see the reactions of these other parties. One VVD parliamentary politician said, the VVD is always open to feasible proposals that lead to more control over migration. However, we could have been much further going, or been much further along, excuse me, if Minister Faber had delivered on the structural solutions that we'd already agreed upon. For example, introducing the dual status system, abolishing asylum for an indefinite period, and declaring rejected asylum seekers who refuse to leave undesirable. Okay, so like, these people are also Hitlerite, but they're like, yeah, you haven't delivered on our institutional brand of Hitlerism. So, you know, we're very concerned with the ability of this cabinet to, like, I don't know, deliver on its promises. Its promises being, yeah, we will banish all migrants from the country or something. So that's from the VVD. Oh no, I got wheelie bumped. Well, I'm mostly fine. They target shocked me? Why? They target shocked me and the guy behind me. Why would you do that? If anything, I feel like it would be, you would use the shock, like, somewhere around here to get everybody right after the boxes, right? Oh my god. Getting bumped off. Anyways, now from the NSC. Yeah, stream sniping. Who the fuck is that Heracross player? I appreciate that they're watching the stream, but I could, you know, well, I would say I could do without the stream sniping, but really, the guy behind me didn't fucking deserve that. They didn't even successfully stream snipe me. They got the guy behind me. Unless they were stream sniping him. I don't know. Eighth, alright. Another MP from the NSC says, NSC wants measures to limit migration just like the other three parties in the cabinet. Oh shit, there's 4 total parties? Oh yeah, okay, so the BBB is also a part of the cabinet. We've been asking for decisiveness from the minister for some time now. At the time, we negotiated on a knife edge. That is why we proposed asylum laws that is why the proposed asylum laws already contain strong measures to limit asylum migration. For NSC, the most important thing now is that the current asylum laws of Minister Faber are adopted by the House of Representatives and the Senate as soon as possible. Bro, that's actually kind of nutty that that the Dutch representative bodies are also called the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's kind of crazy. So yeah, they're upset that, like, this is institutionally ground to a halt, and there's like some developing infighting between the PVV, the NSC, the VVD, and the BBB. All 4 of these acronyms, you don't necessarily need to know what they mean. Apart from that, they're far-right parties. And if you're Dutch, you already know that. How funny, it would actually be incredibly funny if the Netherlands became a new poster child for Nothing Ever Happens, at least when the far right is in charge. Because it's like, oh yeah, I have formed new government. New government or government collapse again? Government collapse again. It fucking keeps happening, dude. There's going to be a shock right here. Or not. Wow, that was actually a way better target shock. Dude, okay. Clearly whoever's stream sniping is still watching because they've stepped up their game. Nope. Or, yes, I mushroomed. I don't know if I needed to mushroom there. I was trying to get out of range of that guy's red shells for the most part. One mushroom. I think I'm more or less safe from a shock. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Yeah, that worked out. Okay, there's the shock. He's gonna get that mushroom. Makes sense. I'm gonna get this mushroom. And 4th place. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's kind of my take on this article coming out of the Netherlands, is that the far right coalition government's kind of falling apart. Hopefully the left in the Netherlands can step up their game and stuff, right? Hopefully. I mean, we've seen De Linke really take to the social media messaging. The platform of the Nouveau Front Populaire has seen massive success because they're all about being anti-austerity and basically like rolling back neoliberalism and going back to the sort of post-war social democratic contract. As a start to the like reformist road to socialism, which there's some critiques to be had of, but is way better than just liberalism again. In fact, let me look up. I'm going to look up right now, see if there are any active left parties in Dutch politics right now, because that'd be interesting, I think. Netherlands political parties. Political parties in the Netherlands. The Labour Party. GroenLinks. Oh yeah, that's right. Green left. House Reps 25, Senators 14. Oh wow, so the left bloc is composed of the Labour Party and the Green Party, and combined they only have 25 seats in the House and 14 in the Senate. Yeesh. Are there any other left-leaning parties? The SP? I have a small presence. Here, let's... Can I... There's no ideological sorting here. Okay. It seems like there's a couple of, like... there's a couple of left parties that have at least somewhat of a presence in the legislature. Hopefully those parties can sort of step it up. Although, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's kind of... The prospects for that isn't looking great for the Netherlands. And here's what I mean by that, right? There's only so many cycles that a liberal democracy can weather of, you know, even in a coalition system, which is generally much more durable. There's only so much that they can weather of the, like, far-right parties getting elected, but being so incompetent that they collapse the government. Because they're still really not facing that much meaningful opposition, right? The three left parties that I saw are the Socialist Party, the Labour Party, and the Green Party. And then also, like, this Animal Welfare Party, but that seems like a smaller, like, single-issue kind of deal. And those three outside of the, like, Animal Welfare Party seem like they are the sort of more institutionalist kind of legacy left parties that have started to fall out of favor in Europe. This was confirmed in the interview that Hassan did with Jean-Luc Mélenchon, but I think we've known this for some time that people overall, overwhelmingly, people are preferring not just the far right, but particularly populism in in European politics, in politics generally. and are rejecting the more established parties. You know, I feel like, you know, there could be some trouble ahead for the Netherlands insofar as the possibility of a fascist takeover, like a proper fascist takeover, not just the far right, like getting elected to, I don't know, a majority in parliament and stuff, unless a left populist party appears where there hasn't been one previously, or if the existing parties move more in the direction of populism, you know? I think those are the only two meaningful outs here. Otherwise, you get the BBB again, and the PVV again, the VVD again. You know? Yeah, and then there's these parties without representation. Here, let's quit the game. I know that, like, I'm not an electoralist, but something about my autism brain just fucking loves looking at different political parties that are active in a given country. Yeah. Party for the animals. That's nice. Yeah, look, here, I'll lift, there's only 4 left-wing parties. 5, I guess, if you count DENK. Denk. There are only like 5 left parties, all of which combined don't have that much representation in the government. You have the Labour Party, the Green Left, the Socialist Party, the Party for the Animals, and the, let's see, the Denk Party. That's it. And combined, they don't have that many seats. You know, every other party is either a center party. There's not even any center-left parties outside of those. All of them are either center or right-wing or, like, very far right-wing or something like that, you know? So yeah, I guess that's the prognosis for the Netherlands. It's all fun and games right now, because the fascists are so incompetent. It seems like every time they make a coalition government, they just infight until the government collapses, which is entertaining, and you should still be eating the popcorn. But at the same time, the only way that's going to change for the better, because it could very well change for the worse, is if there's either a new populist left party that starts making waves, or if one of the existing left parties, you know, Labour Party, Green Left, Socialist Party, Party for Animals, or Denk, starts leaning into populism. You know? Again, there's been a broad sort of rejection of institutional party politics in Europe because of the stagnation of liberalism. You know, and the gradual withering of the welfare state that the far right has sort of disingenuously promised to take up the mantle of simply by expelling all the brown people, right? You need a corresponding populist narrative about how, you know, the billionaires are cheating this country and the working man has frankly had enough or something like that. I don't know. Look, I'm not a political messaging expert, but it's clearly there's inspiration to draw from. Like I said, the Nouveau Front Populaire and De Linke both have been making waves with their political program. And I think it's about time that the Netherlands has a party that starts doing the same. You know? Because otherwise, like I said, eventually you will get a proper fascist takeover, which is not good. Anyways. Sure. Who do we raid here? What's up, 1v3? Oh, were you in the room? It's unfortunate you came here just at the end. You missed me talking about the article that you sent about Geert Wilders. I had quite a bit to say about it. I guess I'll raid Cody Schwab. Oh no. Well, I talked about it at least. Look, the basic idea is just that for as many as there still are. Yeah, look. It's all good. Look, basically the long and the short of it was classic far right L, they're all infighting and threatening to collapse the government again, which is really funny. But at the same time, I looked at the political parties active in the Netherlands, and there are 5 left-leaning parties in the parliament, but they all seem like they're kind of legacy, they're more institutionally established parties. You know, you have the Socialists, the Party for the Animals, the Labour Party, the Green Left, and Denk. But they like, none of these are new, like, fiery populist parties. And that's what the left needs in the Netherlands. It seems like they don't have it yet. You know, so my prescription as politics doctor here is that some people in the Netherlands should start taking the inspiration from the French left and the German left, and you know, once you get that left populist party, people are gonna really take to it. You know, it is going to require you to sort of drain support from the other institutional parties, but there's a potential for a very powerful bloc to be built there if either existing parties start leaning into populism, or if a new populist left party introduces itself, you know? But until then, it's going to be, you know, populist far right is going to be the name of the game, and the institutional parties are going to continue kind of falling to the wayside. Yeah. PVV and NSC lost more seats than any party? Really? In the most recent election? Which is why Geert Wilders is doing this. Yeah, I know that they don't have that many seats in the House of Representatives. The PVV has 37 seats in the House and 4 in the Senate. So yeah, they had to coalition build with the VVD and the BBB and the NSC, which puts them above the 50% line, right? In the House, at least. Not in the Senate, though. Yeah. No, yeah, there just needs to be a populist left. He knows he's disappointing people because they're not getting the immigrants out of the country because Faber or Nutbury can't figure out how to make that happen. Yeah, it seems like there's like, oh yeah, we have this institutional plan to kick all the brown people out of the country, right? The NSC and the BBB and the VVD and whatever, but they're like, yeah, you guys are holding it up. The PVV and your minister, like your cabinet, is holding things up. And so, like, you have Geert Wilders now issuing this ultimatum to his own cabinet, and these other parties kind of squabbling about it. My forecast is government collapse, which will be funny, but, you know. It'd be nice if there was a populist left party so that we didn't go through this cycle so many times. Because, like, as I was saying, the Netherlands can withstand several iterations of this cycle, but not forever, you know? The government, her poor plans, and the fact her own party thinks she sucks. She's creating this really weird yet great situation where you have the government wanting yet also not wanting in any circumstance to collapse. Yeah, it does seem kind of incoherent, where it's like, we better get this plan through. We're going to issue an ultimatum. We need to get this plan through. Otherwise, I'm going to disband the cabinet. But, like, that's the government collapse, if I'm not mistaken. It seems like there's a lot of, like, mixed signals being sent here. It's like, yeah, we have the plan and we need to do the plan. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's, you know. Well, it's certainly something. It's good that they're not competent yet. Yeah, fascism can if you make this a video and add this to it. Hello, YouTube. Sorry I wasn't there. It's all good. I might make it a video. I might not. I'm going out of town for the next week, so I won't be back for a little while. I don't know if this is going to be a segment. Maybe it will be. If it is, though, expect it to take a while. Yeah. I'm just gonna raid I'm just gonna raid Hassan right now. I'm sorry, you guys probably heard a little bit of that. I don't know why it auto, like... Well, I guess it assumes, like, oh, you're clicking on the stream, so you want to see and hear it, but whatever. Look. I'm going to raid Hassan. He's talking about something that I also talked about on stream, which is the federal judge that blocked the tariffs. And how, like, it still might not matter. I don't know. Do my best to represent us, like I used to some time ago. You are doing a massive credit to the Dutch people. I follow him now. Nice. Yeah, he's probably, it's like, he's probably the biggest politics streamer out there on the left. Well, not probably, I think he definitely is. Anyways, I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.